The Israeli death toll, civilian and military, stands at nearly 1,700 in the last year, according to the U.S.-funded National Defense University. The impact of the war will be felt for generations, which is why we want to take a closer look at children in conflict. In Gaza, at least 14,000 kids have died, another 12,500 injured, according to the UN. Catherine Russell is the executive director of UNICEF, the UN agency that helps disadvantaged children around the world. Good morning to you. I know you're deeply concerned, you've said, by what is happening right now in Lebanon. Thousands of children on the streets or in shelters because they've had to flee without supplies. What does the speed of this escalation do to your ability to help these kids?
Well, I think the speed and intensity is shocking, honestly, and it does make it challenging for us. However, we have been in Lebanon. We're on the ground there. We are doing a lot of work, moving in tons of supplies, medical supplies and other supplies. But I think the challenge is that the population, about 1 million people, have been displaced. And so that kind of movement makes it very challenging to try to provide the services that people need. But I think, we're there, we're doing it. Obviously, we need more resources. It's always a challenge. But I feel confident at this point that we can meet the needs, but it's taking a tremendous amount of effort on our part to do it.
The UN refugee chief, one of your colleagues, said today that the strikes on Lebanon had violated international humanitarian law. Is that affecting your workers?
I would say for humanitarian workers, the last year has been so challenging. I mean, we have lost a record number of humanitarian workers around the world. There are so many conflicts going on in so many places where they're so vulnerable. And of course, as the head of my operation, I worry constantly about our teams there and our staff there. And I think UNHCR, who you're referring to, they did lose 2 staff people in Lebanon. And that's a crushing thing to happen because these people are so amazing, and they risk their lives every day to try to help children and desperate people, and to see that happen is really crushing.
UNRWA told CBS that they are heading down the track to, quote, a man-made disaster again in Gaza. I was told the food deliveries have been continuously declining since May. There are law and order challenges. That's part of the problem. 1 million people didn't get food in August. That number now is 1.4 million. How bad is the malnutrition and the hygiene and the mental health of kids there?
It's all terrible. And I think if you look at Gaza really through the eyes of a child, it's a hellscape for children. They've been moved multiple times. They know people, their family members who've been killed. They've been injured. They don't have enough food to eat. They don't have enough water. They don't have clean water. I think these children, you mentioned it earlier, they're so traumatized by what's happening. And I think the notion that we can, even if we can get more supplies in there, the trauma that these children are suffering is going to have lifetime and even post-generational challenges for them, because it's just so profound, and it's been almost a year of this. It's hard to imagine what that's like for a child. You can't really imagine anything comparable for them, and I think they have no security, they have no certainty in life. They're just really suffering every single day.
But you were able to get polio shots into kids. How come you can't get them food?
Yeah, it's such a good question. First, I would say it's terrible that we had to go in and do polio vaccinations, right? There hadn't been polio in Gaza for years, decades, really. And of course, we started to see some cases of it. That's because they're living in such terrible conditions. The water is dirty and all the rest of it. So we were able, with other UN agencies, to go in and vaccinate children for polio, vaccinated well over 500,000 children. 500 million children. It was a real success story. And I think the important point about that is it shows that if the authorities there help us, make it possible for us to do our work, we can do it. We can definitely do it. But we need more support so that there's security. As you say, there is not security right now. It's very dangerous to move things around. The roads are a mess. We get stuck at checkpoints. It's just one logistical problem after another. And I think the polio lesson is we can do it, and they can help us do it if they choose to.
If there's coordinated international pressure
Yes.
to allow for it.
Yeah.
Moving away from the Middle East and to Africa, I know Sudan is an issue you have been trying to put on the world's radar for some time. Nearly 4 million children under 5 are acutely malnourished, and there's a cholera outbreak. Yeah. Can you break through there, another war zone?
Sudan is is the most alarming place for me at the moment because of the scale of it, right? It is the largest displacement crisis in the world and the largest hunger problem in the world. We have already declared that there is famine in part of Sudan, right? Children are grossly malnourished, and children are on the verge of famine in many places where it hasn't already been declared. There's also incredible violence. Children are moving constantly. They're very vulnerable. I was there, several months ago, and the stories I heard were heartbreaking of what children had seen and experienced. Of the 19 million children who live in Sudan, 17 million have been out of school for over a year.
17 out of 19 million children are out of school.
Yes.
Wow.
For over a year, right? What kind of life is this? They can't get medical supplies. It's really challenging for them. But I will say this, I met with some children in a camp that UNICEF supports, and the amazing thing was they could still talk to me about the future, their hope for the future, which I'm always struck by this, that children are children everywhere, and even in the most desperate places, they can have hope, but the international community has got to do better, and in Sudan, everyone has got to put pressure on the parties to stop the fighting and to stop making lives so miserable for children.
Catherine Russell, thank you.
Thanks.